Hello, fellow story sojourners. My name is Elian J. Kildare, or EJK for short. That is a pen name and not my real name because I'm a writer and I love to discuss all things writing and storytelling. Welcome to Stories That Shaped Me, a podcast about stories across media that have impacted or inspired me in some way, both as a person and as a writer. By talking about stories I love, I hope to open up the conversation about why storytelling is an integral part of the human experience. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stories That Shaped Me. I'm Elian J. Kildare, or EJ Kildare, which is my pen name, and I'm a writer and a recent creative writing graduate from the University of Oxford. Like I stated in the intro, this podcast is focused on examining stories that have had some impact or influence on me, both as a person and as a writer, and I'm going to be talking about stories across different media that strike my interest. And as I said in the previous episode, this podcast is going to be pretty informal, and as of now, I'm going it alone, so please bear with me if there's any technical hiccups. But thank you so much for being here. So today, in honor of this being the month of Valentine's Day, I wanted to talk about a young, not quite couple that a lot of people have been talking about recently, and that is Percy Jackson and Annabeth Chase from the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. To give a quick overview, Percy Jackson was originally a series of 5 middle grade fantasy books by author Rick Riordan. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name. I've heard it said several different ways and I'm not quite sure which one is correct. But anyway, Percy Jackson covers the story of the titular character Percy and his friends who attend a summer camp for the children of the Olympian gods known as Camp Half-Blood. The Half-Bloods in question are young demigods who get caught up in a war to save both Olympus and the world. And each book in the original series follows Percy and his companions as they embark on various quests. The series has now expanded to include several spin-off series such as The Heroes of Olympus, Trials of Apollo, and The Kane Chronicles, to name a few. And the core series has recently been adapted into a TV show that is currently airing on Disney+. It just finished its second season, which was based on the second book, The Sea of Monsters. And this series has had special significance for neurodivergent fans because all of the main demigod characters canonically have ADHD and dyslexia, which is due to the fact that Uncle Rick, as some fans refer to him, originally conceived of this story for his son, who himself has ADHD and really struggled with his self-esteem growing up. Now, before I proceed, this episode is going to contain major spoilers for both the books and the show, but the show in particular, so I just want to warn you now, if you've not seen or read it and you don't like spoilers, please pause and come back later. But for anyone who has already been spoiled or doesn't mind spoilers, stick around because we're going to talk about Percabeth or Percabeth. Again, I'm not sure about pronunciation because I've heard it both ways, but since his name is Percy, I'm just gonna go with Percabeth. Anyway, so one of the major goals of this series is to use the framework of the Olympian gods and their rather messed up interpersonal relationships to explore fractured family dynamics and generational trauma, specifically as it's experienced by the demigod characters who are their kids. The show, in particular, really delves into these dynamics and tries to examine them from multiple different angles, showing us how different demigods relate to their parents and vice versa. Some of these godly parents are more willing to be involved in their kids' lives than others, with varying levels of success. For example, Hermes, the god of thieves and travelers, played by none other than Alexander Hamilton himself, Lin-Manuel Miranda, is very invested in his son Luke's life, and Luke is played by the fantastic Charlie Bushnell. But he struggles with how to get involved without incurring the wrath of Zeus, who was originally played by the late, great Lance Reddick in Season 1, and will now be portrayed by Courtney B. Vance from Season 2 onward. And, Zeus seems to be a major roadblock when it comes to the gods who are actually trying to be decent parents. He's really petty and really jealous, and we've gotten some exposition in season 1 specifically about how that has negatively interfered with some of the families in the series, obviously causing a lot of strain and tension in these relationships that really shouldn't be there. And then you have the gods who either don't seem to care very much or they view their kids as a means to an end rather than as children who both need and deserve parental love and affection. One of the most notable examples of this is Clarice LaRue, played by the incredible Dior Goodjohn, who is the daughter of Ares, played by Adam Copeland, the god of war, who on the show starts off as kind of a cookie cutter bully character, but whom we later learn is just desperate for her father's attention and approval, which he is quite honestly uninterested in giving. Then we have Percy, played by the amazing Walker Scobell, who is the son of Poseidon, and his human mother, Sally Jackson, played by the equally amazing Virginia Cull, who in the show, which this is a bit of a deviation from how it's characterized in the books, it seems to be the product of a genuinely loving relationship between his father and his mother. Show Poseidon, who is played by the inimitable Toby Stephens, seems to demonstrate a real desire to be involved in Percy's life, and he also seems to still be very much in love with Sally and wants nothing but the best for her. And you get the sense that were it not for forces beyond his control, namely his brother Zeus getting in the way of other people's happiness because he's super petty, Poseidon would drop everything to be present with Sally and Percy. So, although this situation still isn't great, the more we see of him, the more I feel like you can tell that he really cares. He's doing the best he can with the terrible circumstances he has to work with, and that as Percy gets older, he's becoming more and more aware of the effort his father is at least trying to make. So, yeah, it's not perfect by any means, but he has a father who does truly love him as he is, and he knows that his father loves him as he is, and that unlike some of the other demigods like Clarice, he doesn't really have to do anything to prove himself or to earn that love. And he was also raised by an amazing mother who has done nothing but fight for him from the very beginning, who's sacrificed so much, even almost her own life back in season 1, to give him the best life that she can, no matter how difficult it's been to do so, and who, through her incredible example of unwavering support, has taught him what unconditional love really looks like. Now, one of Percy's best friends, and his crush, although he has yet to consciously realize this, he is only 13 as of season 2, is Annabeth Chase, played by the phenomenal Leah Sava Jeffries. Annabeth is the daughter of Athena, played by Andra Day, goddess of wisdom and strategy, and she is often the brains of the operation, so to speak. She and Percy initially get off to a rough start. They don't see eye to eye, and they butt heads a lot, but over time they come to develop a very strong level of mutual respect for each other that serves as the foundation for both their friendship and the budding teen romance that neither of them seems to be very aware of yet. Percy's very action-oriented, often acting before he thinks, and Annabeth, like her mother, is a master strategist whose strength is thinking things through from different angles. So, although their approach to problem solving is often very different, when they're able to work together as a team, they complement each other really well. And they both seem to admire each other's strengths even when they're not always getting along, and we see, especially in season 2, just how much they've come to trust each other and rely on each other. Annabeth, however, has had a very different familial experience from Percy's. In season 1, we learn that she was estranged from her human father and was on the run at a very young age, and her relationship with her mother Athena is practically non existent. The only time Athena ever seems to pay her any notice is when Annabeth unwittingly makes her angry. Other than that, it's pretty much radio silence. And Annabeth is great at acting tough and pretending that this emotional neglect doesn't really bother her, but as Percy grows closer to her, he's one of the few people who can see right through the facade. Because of his background being raised by such a loving and attentive mother like Sally Jackson, he knows what true maternal love is supposed to look like, and so he recognizes that Annabeth is not receiving it. And not only that, but he's aware of how much Annabeth craves that same love and attention from her mother, and how everything that she does, basically, she's the poster child for overachieving neurodivergent girls. And as a former overachieving neurodivergent girl, I can definitely relate. Uh, but everything that Annabeth does, being this overachiever, is a desperate attempt to get her mother to at the very least notice her, if not fully validate her. And I think that Annabeth, even with the progress that she's made by season 2 in terms of her personal development, recognizing that the gods aren't infallible and that the way that some of them treat their families is inexcusable, is still kind of uncomfortable with fully acknowledging and processing the grief of being denied the love that she has always deserved from her mother. So, in a sense, Percy seems to be even more defensive of her emotional needs than she is herself. He truly cares for and admires her, and to see all of the amazing qualities in her that he looks up to just blatantly being ignored by her mother, I'd argue that deep down that makes him pretty angry. Because he knows that Annabeth deserves better than that, and he wants better for Annabeth, even if she herself isn't quite to the place yet where she can advocate that for herself. So in season 2, the two of them embark on this quest to find the legendary Golden Fleece after the magical shield protecting Camp Half-Blood starts to fail, thanks to an attack from the traitorous Luke and the other supporters of the Titan Kronos, who is seeking to escape his imprisonment in Tartarus and take down Olympus. The kid's goal is to find the fleece and use it to heal the tree that basically powers the shield, and they're joined on this quest by Percy's half-brother, a Cyclops named Tyson, played by the endearing Daniel Deemer, and they're also kind of racing against Clarice, who wants to retrieve the fleece herself in order to get her father Ares to actually be proud of her. Along the way, they encounter several obstacles, some of which do end up dredging up this deep wound that Annabeth carries as a result of her mother's neglect. The most notable instance of this is in episode 5, when the group gets separated while on their quest, and Percy and Annabeth find themselves trapped in this island spa run by the goddess Circe, played by Rosemary DeWitt, nicknamed Cece in the series, and they're trying to escape. So, in order to do so, they have to sail past the sirens of the Odyssey fame, whose song lures their victims in by showing them a vision of what they want most, or that preys on whatever the hero's fatal flaw is. Now, Annabeth's fatal flaw in the books and the show is revealed to be pride, while Percy's is undying personal loyalty. When the two of them attempt to sail past the sirens, Annabeth ends up getting reeled in by this vision of her being clever enough to outwit the sirens, while Percy is in the background desperately trying to save her life. It seems like this is just a typical play on Annabeth's desire to be the best and the brightest. Like I said, her fatal flaw is pride, and she is an overachiever. But what makes this scene so significant is the fact that at the end of her vision, once she mistakenly believes that she's outsmarted the sirens, her mother Athena finally shows up to praise Annabeth for her genius in handling the situation, and this whole sequence is so well executed that the audience completely buys into it being real, until at the last second Annabeth snaps out of it and realizes that the whole thing, including her mother's appearance, was a trick and that the sirens are about to kill her. Then Percy literally leaps to her rescue and brings her back to their boat, and after that, they're both able to sail past the sirens successfully. After this sequence occurs, the two of them have this honestly very profound conversation about what happened that really reveals the contrast between the way that Percy expresses his love for Annabeth and the way that her mother does, or fails to do. The sirens lured her in by exploiting her fatal flaw, pride, but that pride is actually rooted in this desperate need to be seen and acknowledged by her mother. For her whole life, Annabeth has lived off of the assumption that if she just does more or does better, if she's this perfect, most dutiful, most intelligent, and most resourceful demigod, that this will finally win her Athena's love and affection. She doesn't want to be the best simply for the sake of it. She wants to be the best because this is the only way she knows how to earn her mother's love. But no matter how hard she fights, nothing she does seems to be enough. So, to contrast this then with Percy never makes Annabeth feel like she has to earn anything from him. He offers his care, his friendship, his admiration, all of his love for Annabeth to her freely, without her needing to fight for it or even ask for it. He says in this season that it only took 2 days for him to realize how special she is. And in this scene, after the siren attack, he adds that the only thing on his mind when he jumped in to save her was just her. He's already pledged his undying loyalty to her because he cares about her and admires her, and she's very important to him, and she really didn't have to lift a finger to earn any of it. Percy loves her as she is because she's Annabeth. He doesn't make unreasonable demands for her to prove herself worthy of his love. He just offers it to her because she matters to him. No matter what, he would have saved her without a second thought. And seeing Percy consistently offer this kind of love, even just through friendship, because they still have a little while to go before they're an official couple, is a really crucial element in Annabeth's overall character arc. After so many years of experiencing love as merely transactional or believing that it's something you have to fight tooth and nail to earn from people, especially those closest to you, she's finally seeing that this isn't the case. She's getting a crash course in unconditional love from Percy, who is imitating the type of love that his parents, especially his mother Sally, have given to him. And it's such an eye opening experience for Annabeth to be loved in this way, to start recognizing that she is worthy of it as she is. She doesn't need to be the best or the brightest or to burn herself out trying to get there because who she is now is enough. She's enough for Percy. And if she's enough for Percy, maybe that means she's enough for other people as well. Maybe she doesn't have to keep proving herself. And maybe the person who needs to put more work in isn't her, but actually her mother, Athena. So it's going to be interesting to see how Annabeth continues to develop from here on out, and how Percy's care for her is going to continue influencing the admiration she has for him. I think that she really values how much he cares and how genuine that is, and how much he's willing to fight for her without her needing to convince him that she's worth caring about. They've built this beautiful friendship with each other that's gradually evolving into something more, although they're still somewhat awkward about it since they're teenagers. And it'll be fascinating to see how that continues to play out over the next few seasons. Anyway, that brings the main topic of this episode to a close, and I hope it's given you all some interesting food for thought. Like I did in the last episode, I'm going to close out with a relevant recommendation, either a book, TV show, movie, etc., that is somewhat related to the topic today. And this episode's recommendation is going to be another middle grade fantasy book called Field Guide to the Supernatural Universe by Alison Noel. It has a very similar kind of witty narration style to the Percy Jackson books, and it's got a lot of high-stakes adventure elements as well as some magic, which might be appealing to all of you Percy Jackson fans, young and old. So I'm just going to read out the synopsis from Goodreads here. When he first started seeing ghosts, Max mistakenly assumed that everyone else could see them too. Now, after years of being blamed for the pranks of mischievous spirits, Max is determined to do whatever it takes to make himself normal. But when he's sent to spend the summer with his eccentric grandfather, Ramhart, being normal becomes impossible. Here in Glimmerville, bakeries sell enchanted pies, the lake is infested with mermaids, the town's beloved ghosts roam free, and Ramhart himself is celebrated as the world's most famous monster hunter. At first, all Max wants is to survive the summer, but the more time he spends in Glimmerville, the more he starts to wonder if he's finally found a place where he can truly be himself. But when a supernatural attack steals Ramhart's soul, Max, with the help of a few new friends, must go on a quest to find his grandfather's renowned field guide, an enchanted book that contains all the knowledge Ramhart has gathered about defeating unearthly nemeses. And if they don't find the book fast, Glimmerville will crumble into chaos, and Max will lose the only person who's ever made him feel at home. So yeah, like I said, it's got a lot of similarities to Percy Jackson's narration style, as well as some of the fantastical elements, so it's an exceptionally fun read, even for adults. I had an absolute blast with it, so go ahead and check it out. With that out of the way, that officially brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you again for listening, and if you would like to follow and support me, my primary platform is my Substack, Elian with a pen. That's spelled Eliann with a pen, which is free to subscribe. I am currently in the process of posting a serialized contemporary Red Riding Hood retelling there, if that's something you're interested in reading. I also have an Instagram by the same name, at Elian with a pen, all one word, all lowercase, where I post all of my updates. And in addition to that, if you're interested and able, no pressure, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee where I accept donations of any amount, and that link can be found on both my Substack and Instagram profiles. Of course, if nothing else, you can always help support me by just spreading the word. So if you know anyone else who would be interested in listening to an emerging writer yap about stories and characters, please feel free to share. Anyway, that's it for now, so thank you all for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye! The intro and outro music is Tropical Summer by Top Flow on Percabeth. The cover image for this podcast is taken from Carol Malmeda 03 on Percabeth and edited in Canva.